Here are 10 Pokemon who are almost completely different. Alright, let's just acknowledge the thumbnail right away. No, I didn't just draw that for a clickbait thumbnail. Okay, I kind of did.
I may be a degenerate, a scumbag. I love women.
But there actually was a possibility Pikachu would have looked like that. Here's the context. Back when Red and Blue were being prepared to release in the US, Nintendo of America wasn't confident in their success. Noah, as I'll be calling them for short, didn't think American kids would like a game with so much text. Which, considering where we are now, fair. Noah even thought the Pokemon designs were too cute. The same reason Pikachu was chosen as the mascot instead of Clefairy. And so, Noah submitted some replacement designs. And these designs shocked the Pokemon CEO, Tsunekazu Ishihara. If I may read a direct quote here, they turned Pikachu into something like a tiger with huge breasts. It looked like a character from the musical Cats. When I asked, how is this supposed to be Pikachu? They said, well look, there's his tail right there.
I love women.
The designs Noah submitted has never been released to the public. Luckily, there's plenty of fan art of what it might have looked like. That being said, it's possible that we're misinterpreting this quote. In Japanese, breast and chest are pretty much interchangeable, so some believe that Noah's Pikachu wasn't some curvaceous tiger lady, but instead a muscular tiger man, something like Incineroar. But will that information stop me or other fan artists? I don't know, ask Vaporeon. But even Japanese Pikachu was almost completely different. Pikachu was originally gonna be a Daifuku, mochi with long ears. But Koji Nishino, the person Snorlax is based on, rejected the design. It was a long process of submitting a design, it getting rejected, and submitting a new one before we got the Pikachu we know and love. But next up we have a 2-for-1 deal, Umbreon and Espeon. As weird as it may sound, Umbreon wasn't always a dark type. You may have read some Umbreon dex entries and been confused. Many of them mention how Umbreon is able to spray poisonous sweat. Sure, Toxic is pretty common in competitive Umbreon sets, but this is an oddly specific detail for a Pokemon who isn't poison type. Well, that's because Umbreon almost was a poison type evolution, and a poison type Umbreon was playable at some point, existing within the code of Gold and Silver's 1997 Space World demo. This Umbreon also had a completely different evolution method, evolving with a scrapped item called the Poison Stone. We don't know why they changed Umbreon's typing. My theory is that it was so all the evolutions would be special types. Prior to the physical special split, Poison was a physical type. This would have made Umbreon the outlier, so they changed it to Dark. Espeon was also quite different in the Space World demo. Unlike Umbreon, Espeon's typing didn't change at all from the demo. Their design though was a lot more different from what we know. While Umbreon's only change was the color of their rings, Espeon was yellow instead of purple. And like Umbreon, Espeon was originally a stone evolution too, this time being another scrapped item called the Heartstone. And while we don't know what else would have used the Poison Stone, Xatu and Politoed would have also evolved with the Heartstone. Wait, so Umbreon's rings went from purple to yellow, and Espeon's fur went from yellow to purple. Not sure if that was intentional, but it's a funny coincidence. Now we have Porygon 2's beta design from the Space World demo. Instead of, you know, appearing like an upgrade of Porygon, Porygon 2 originally looked like some kind of robotic lion. Some think this design was based on Pon the Lion, the mascot of Mr. Donut, a Japanese donut chain. But this is actually just a funny coincidence. Pon the Lion didn't appear until 2003, 4 years before this beta design. That being said, it is strange how they came up with this beta design. Maybe it's supposed to be some reference to 3D modeling, sort of like how Porygon's name is a pun on Polygon. Next up, we have a 3-for-1 deal, the scrapped Hoenn starters. The infamous Terralic showed us a lot of scrapped Pokemon designs, and we got to see what the original plans for the Hoenn starters were. Trico and Torchic were relatively similar to what we have now, but there are notable differences. The color of Trico's eyes and belly patterns were actually swapped, but this isn't the only beta Trico we have access to. Even earlier than the Terralic design, we have this design. This design was shown in the 2012 Game On Expo in Brazil, and this Trico is a lot more different from what we have now. Trico's head was shorter and closer to actual geckos. Trico only had one tail instead of two, a completely different belly pattern, and leaf blades on their arms much like Grovyle has. Going over to our fire starter, we have Beta Torchic. And like Trico, this was shown off in the Game On Expo, and we actually have a good number of Beta Torchic designs. The first one here is one where Torchic was a lot more baby-like. Torchic had large feathers on the sides of their head, and yellow feathers that went around their neck. This design will later be changed to look closer to the final one, looking a lot like a middle ground of sorts. Finally, for the Beta Hoenn starter designs, we have the Water Starter, and I think this one is my favorite in particular. Trico and Torchic may have gone through a lot of design changes, but at least they were always planned to be the Hoenn starters. Mudkip, meanwhile, was not always going to be the Hoenn Water Starter. Instead, that was a rabbit Pokemon whose Japanese name was Warabi. And while I love Mudkip, I also wish this Pokemon came to be real. Like, come on, look at my channel banner. I'm a fan of rabbits as a design aesthetic. I'm just gonna say it, we were robbed. But speaking of being robbed, Beta Simisear was perfect. Why did they change the elemental monkey designs? Beta Simisage had a smirk that really made them look like a delinquent. Beta Simipour hilariously looked like they were wearing a lampshade. And Beta Simisear. Giga Thick King is what this design is. Oh no, but now they're not uniform. Who cares? It's not like the starters are uniform, so why do the monkeys need to be uniform? Maybe. Just maybe, if Simisear had this friend-shaped design, they wouldn't have been voted as the least popular Pokemon. Second to last is Zekrom's beta design. Like the monkeys, Zekrom's beta design was revealed in the Terra leak, though this design was a lot goofier than what we got in the end. Their tail looks like a bee's abdomen and their arms were a lot different. Speaking of arms, there's a scrap design even older than this one, though we have no visuals on how this one looked. According to Junichi Masuda, Zekrom was supposed to have 4 hands. More so, Zekrom and Reshiram were meant to have a sort of contrast. Zekrom was supposed to be a more male-like dragon Pokemon. Meanwhile, Reshiram was supposed to be more feminine presenting. A feminine dragon-like box art legendary. You know, Reshiram's not the only one. We end today with my favorite story of a Pokemon whose design changed, but also the one that's kind of the most tragic. This is the story of Lugia, created by Takeshi Shudo, the original writer of the Pokemon anime. Many think that this beta Pokemon was Beta Lugia, but that just isn't true. After the immense success of the first movie, Shudo was given a lot of creative liberty for the movie 2000, and so he created a Pokemon that would be exclusive to that movie. What we now know as Lugia was initially known as Pokemon X. This naming scheme is even seen in X's early concept art. Eventually, the name Lugia was suggested in a staff meeting. People liked it, so it stuck. Now for some of Lugia's original lore, thought of by Takeshi Shudo. Lugia was created to be a symbol of life in the Pokemon world. Not only did Lugia symbolize coexistence and the ocean current, but Lugia was the original creator of life for the Pokemon world. Kind of a funny coincidence since we'd later get Xerneas, another creator of life who's named after the letter X. Eventually, the Pokemon Company saw Lugia. They liked Lugia so much that they were made into an official Pokemon. This came as a complete shock to Shudo, but a welcome one. But now comes the part where this story kind of gets sad. Takeshi Shudo did have regrets on how Lugia was ultimately portrayed. Lugia was originally genderless like other legendaries, but since Shudo designed them as the creator of life, he always saw them as a maternal Pokemon. During production, Koichi Yamadera would be cast as Lugia, and Shudo would later come to regret not pushing back on that, wishing for Lugia to be voiced by a woman. He would then drown himself in drugs and alcohol, which he was known for doing throughout his career. But hey, let's not end this video on such a downer note. Let's talk about Shadow Lugia for a bit. The only other semi-official Pokemon not designed by Game Freak. Shadow Lugia was designed by James Turner for Coliseum XD. At the time, Turner wasn't a member of the Pokemon Company yet, but he would later join in 2009, designing Pokemon like the Vanillite line and Meltan line. He also designed characters like Professor Sada and Turo. And there you have it, folks. 10 Pokemon who were almost completely different. But what did you think about the stories we shared here? Which beta design was your favorite? Do you also think we were robbed of chunky Simisear? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to join the Lopunny Appreciation Super Squad today, and become a member if you're interested. It's only $2 a month. Have a nice day, you wonderful people. Let's just acknowledge the infamous Terra leak showed us a lot of finally for the beta Hoenn starter. Beta Simisage had a smirk that really made him look like oh fuck. Though this design was a lot goofier than what we got. Their tail looks like a bee's Zekrom was supposed to be a more male